My first question for all of you, how did you end up in the software engineering role and do you like it? And you can pass the microphone.
Yeah, I have the microphone, so if you don't mind, I'll go first. So I left university with an archaeology and anthropology degree. There's not many jobs in archaeology or anthropology. I went and did marketing for a bit, and I worked at an e-commerce site that does airport parking and hotels. It's called Airport Parking and Hotels Limited. It wasn't very fun. They are lovely there, and I would recommend it if you want airport parking or hotels. I went and did a master's in human-computer interaction because I thought from my experience in marketing, I would be a good fit for UX. And I just fell in love with coding. And luckily, IBM were recruiting at the time, so they were offering me a education path to be a developer. I joined IBM and I became a UX service designer. So from there, I had to claw my way back to being a developer. Had a lot of luck with mentors who brought me onto projects. And since then, it's just been plain sailing. I love coding. I find it so fun. I find it so satisfying.
Every day.
Every day.
You sure?
Okay, maybe not every day. And that's me. I'll pass over.
Right. I'm also a career changer. So I did a law degree because my family's from the immigrants. And I was like, I'm going to be successful regardless. I'm going to be either a doctor or a lawyer or maybe an accountant if I feel, brave. But I chose law. And although I did like my degree, I didn't actually like the realities of being a lawyer. So after my degree, I felt very tired and unsure. So I gave myself a break before I was going to continue being a lawyer. So I was going to do my master's. And in that time, I started doing hobbies. And one of them was coding because I remembered that my IT teacher gave us a class where she was like, we're just going to do a web page today. And I made sparkles appear every time you moved your mouse. And I remember feeling joyful. And I was like, maybe that's something I can do, just, lift my spirits. And I started to go to Code Academy and I got obsessed, did all the courses. And then I went to code school, which was like, had fun theme songs for each thing, like HTML, CSS. So I was like, oh, I like this. And then I was like, actually, maybe I should do this as my full-time job. So very stupidly, or I don't know, very successfully, I quit my job and I did a boot camp, and that was nearly 7 years ago. So I haven't looked back. Do I enjoy? I do actually. I do really like coding. It used to be a hobby and it's no longer, it's my day-to-day job. So I don't really do it. I try not to do it after work. So yeah, that's me.
That's a good timing. That's a good timing.
Okay, so I wanted to be a journalist, and my dad, he picked this career for me. So we had a deal. I told him that I will sit in the competition exam for computers only if you will pay for my journalism competitive exam. He agreed, and I was like, okay, fine. I prepared for journalism exam. I made sure that I fail in the my computer exam, but God and my stars, I failed in my journalism, for which I prepared, and I got into my computer degree. So this is how I started my computer journey. And yeah, and then same thing. I started with web page coloring and everything. I developed a website for my college. I got a lot of appreciation, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's go with the flow. And this is how I started my career. I got the job and all that, and now I'm here. Do I enjoy it? Very honest. If my project is working, my feedback is good. There's no bug. PRs are getting merged. I'm the best developer. If there's a bug, I'm like, okay, what is this another career I can choose? Shall I start doing cooking? Shall I go become a painter? So yeah, this is how the life of a developer, I think. But at the end of the day, yes, I enjoy it, to be honest, because I look around, my sister is in non-tech domain, and I can compare that kind of the life they are living. We always script that developers' life is hard. but I'm thankful that we are still we do have good jobs, and we do have good companies and openings around. So yeah, as I told you in my talk, to pay the bills, I work.
That's great. I mean, guys, and I used to be an architect, by the way, hello. And I ended up doing software engineering, so I'm with all of you. It's never the bad time to start doing React and coding. Like, we're all on the same page, right? So, Millisande? Is that correct? I'm pronouncing it right.
It's Millisande, but
Millisande. No, because it's like, need to say it right. Millie, what do you think of Cypress?
Excellent question. And I always feel like it was planted by someone in the room, and I know who it is. So I have used Cypress. I do like Cypress. It's part of a suite of different test strategies. So Jest is really useful for the unit tests, and Cypress is that next level up where you're starting to put all the pieces together. I've not really used it extensively for unit testing, and people today have been telling me how they can use Cypress in interesting ways. So personally, I think brilliant, add it. It makes a huge difference to especially at scale projects of knowing that what you're shipping is good quality. I have had problems with Cypress with timeouts, but that is a personal bugbear with a particularly time-intensive UI flow that I had. But, that's not Cypress's fault.
And then, following question. What do you think is a good test coverage?
Yeah, so this is quite contentious. So as I said on a previous project, I was asked to make sure it was 100% accurate, covered even, and that's not best practice. Like I would say, your best case is probably you want 80% accuracy, but even that is up for debate. I mean, Ken Dodds, who writes the testing library, has said you shouldn't look at code coverage at all. Like, the thing that matters is your business case coverage. There's just not an automated way to have a green tick to say, yes, you've done all your business cases. So when we had the 100% coverage, actually a lot of the time we only achieved it by turning stuff off, going, we're not looking at coverage on this particular file. So it's not actually 100%, even when we said it was. So aim for 80%, but if you don't hit it, don't worry about it.
That's a good one. That's an amazing one. So next one, I have a question for Faduma. And how difficult do you find it deploying React Native applications? I mean, just in general, deploying applications is usually quite difficult, but from your experience?
Yes. Well, if you compare it to a web app, it's a lot more difficult, in my opinion. I feel like there's much more support and tools and magic that kind of takes away from actually seeing the bare bones how to like deploy stuff. So like Fossil and Netlify, etc. So if you compare it to that, it is more difficult. However, I feel like I said, I'm using App Center and tools like that kind of help with the difficulty.
The following one then, do you find it simple to use the App Center like applications, or do you need to use Swift to be able to deploy something, or like do you find it useful?
Well, you can use just React Native with App Center, so you don't have to use like an iOS app by itself or Android. You can use those as well. So it does work with React Native. So all the JavaScript developers that want to do an app, that works with it too. So I found it much easier because when I joined the project, they were not utilizing it very well, and it would take hours to deploy. So I enjoy things that make it my life easier. So
Oh, that's great. Could you pass the microphone to Neha, because I have some questions for you as well. Neha, do you have tips on how to avoid prop drilling?
So the way I actually follow what React documentation prefer, I follow the same one, where what you have to do is you have to just think that maximum 2 to 3 levels, your prop should be there. Otherwise, you need to think about what is the better way to do it. That's what I follow generally.
And about the naming convention, are there any guidelines that you can communicate? And this is like, I'm really curious about them. Are there any guidelines that you can communicate to other developers or Like, how do you want to create the name conventions? Because different people, different ideas, different way of writing it.
Sure. So the best thing is what I mentioned in my talk also, that first thing is the pattern. You wanted to do camel case, which is the most accepted one. So the first thing is this. I don't know why would someone will go for uppercase. So, and if you will go for all lowercase and you will be having multiple words, then it would be hard to read. So the always think like you are standing at the next end of your code and you are reading it. It is making sense or no. So the first thing is the patterns. The second thing is, if it's a method, obviously it would be doing something. So make it like the way we do change handler, on click. So make it actionable verbs. And if it's just a variable, then make it noun, name it. And it should be very clear. The biggest hesitation I have seen in developers is if their function name or variable name is going more than 2 to 3 words, it's fine. It is totally fine. Because if your code is very large, you are working on a very production level heavy application, definitely you want to be very clear with what your function is doing. So the name it's okay if it is going more than 2 or 3 words, it's totally fine. And the best thing what I do is, if I get confused, what I do is I go on GitHub, look for the top projects, go and try to read their code, what kind of naming convention they are following, what are the good practices they are following, and I try to adapt that. So yeah, these are the few tips.
Thank you very much for the great answer. Now I have a question, which is, because we have today senior software engineers, and you probably guys needed to mentor or give a feedback about some of the work in the project. How do you communicate to the team about the requirements or needs which are needed to be developed? Just like from your experience in your teams or like between teams.
Okay, so I will go first. So whenever the requirements are coming or the new story is coming or project is coming, if there are designs, if you are lucky enough, you are getting some designs or wireframes, that I actually request at least give us something, wireframes, to get an idea, a reference point that what we have to do. So what I prefer to do is I sit with the team and I take them through. I also try to have a walkthrough that what these designs are expected to do, what things are assumption, what are clear, what are doubts. I try to capture everything with my team. And then what we do is, if they are generally there is no documentation because it's a new project, or what if it's a legacy project, try to start maintaining those. And then breaking them into smaller parts. For example, if it's an application where we have to do API integration to get the listing of the products, then start talking about that, what we are expecting from the API folks, what is expected or what is required to make this module. We need designs, what are the product, if the API is coming and product listing is coming, what are the actions we can do and all this. So basically get in a room. If you are working virtually, then get in a Zoom, sit there, do the brainstorming with them, Figma, designs, talk about from your experience, look around different applications, what they are doing. Because nowadays, designers also prefer that we developers come and give them more ideas, or the product owners expect that we come and challenge them. So that definitely helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good ideas. In terms of like team feedback and like cohesion, I really like having sort of just developer retros. I think when you're in a team and you have a cross-functional team and you do retros, most of the time it's about the project. It's never about the specific code base or your project or how you felt about what you delivered, and just developing stuff. So that's what I really like doing. Also, it allows for a constructive way for people to voice their concerns about things and come up with ideas to make things better. So then it's not just in PRs or, other places where people get frustrated where, people are not following patterns. Why? So I like doing that.
Yeah. And how long was your retro? What is your longest retro?
To be honest, I love retros. I'm gonna be saying that. So I'm biased in that respect. I like emotions coming. Like I want to know what's going on. Like, but however, I think sometimes people use retros for just a bit boring. Yeah, where they're not really. There's no psychological safety. So people are not really talking about what the issues are. So then it gets a bit dull. So yeah.
So agree with a lot of the comments. Definitely, code reviews I find a really essential part of just asking, why did you do it like that? Have you considered the ramifications of the way you're doing it? But I'll probably take this question a little bit further and say, at the moment, I'm a senior developer, and the developers that I'm working with aren't as experienced as me. I've been on teams where I'm the senior developer and some of the team members are 10 years more experienced than me. And I was given the senior developer role because I was better at the client interactions and the prioritization. And I just had to back myself that, okay, I'm not necessarily going to know the answer about their coding questions, but I've been put in this role for a reason. And actually, in those cases, I would often be asked by these 10 years more experienced than me developers going, this table method that we're using here doesn't seem right. And I'd just be like, oh, really? So what would you say would be the right one to use now? Like, oh, I think we should do it like this. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it like that then. And they were like, okay, thank you very much, senior developer. I appreciate your feedback. And I'm like, okay, great, thank you. So, the roles that you bring and the feedback you can give is not dependent on experience. It's not dependent on confidence. You'll get there in the end. Like right now, I just tell people, why are you doing it like that? Don't do it like that, because I now know what I'm doing. But even before that, I'd be in a position where I could still give feedback.
That's a great one. Yeah. And while you have a microphone, may I ask you another question? What is your thoughts on using snapshot tests?
Hey!
Because that's just the question is like the most quoted one. So, you have a Cypress, now you have a snapshots.
Yeah.
That's what happened when you're having, testing.
So I really dislike Jest snapshots. Jest creates a fake DOM, so it's not actually representative of exactly what you're going to see in the UI, and it misses a lot of stuff, and it kind of just prints out a load of your props. So especially I was using Material UI, which is a common library, and I think people behind Google are behind it, but using themes there, you just pass the whole theme object into the props of every component and it gets printed out. And if you change your blue color slightly, every single one of your snapshot tests fail. So everyone just gets into the habit of just doing like I'm going to update the snapshots. I'm not even looking at them. So they're just a waste of everyone's time. You should be writing, if you care about the theming or you care about the styling, you should be writing specific expect clauses that say, I expect that this prop will have this styling. Or this component will have this styling. And if you really care about the front end, people have reminded me that visual regression exists. So I can't list any tools, unfortunately, because I've forgotten the one that I was using. Someone mentioned about using Storybook today, but that just prints out, this is a visual picture of what your UI will look like. This is what it looks like now. Here are the differences. Are you happy with them? And I think that that's a much better use of snapshots.
That's great. While you have a microphone, I will ask you another question.
Go for it. Love it.
It's not about testing this
Okay.
time. Well, actually, it is. It's about the psychology and testing. So most of us suffered with testing because when you see the test fails, we are always like, oh my God, why is it failing again? How to go through the frustration of fixing the test and being committed, because you mentioned in your talk that you need to be committed, but at the same time, you can give up on it. So how do you know when to stop and when to continue?
Great question. Because mostly I've just been using a rule of thumb. Through practice, I can definitely see when something is a lost cause. It's I would say if anything is taking you longer than a day and you're already at like 75% code coverage, I would say stop. Like every single case is different. You have to think about balance. Have I done enough use cases? Have I done enough coverage? How much am I actually getting out of making this one test work? And how much time have I sunk into it? So again, it's hard to give a good rule of thumb. I would say if you're taking one test is taking you half a day to a day, you should probably consider trying it a different way or giving up.
Makes sense. I'm with you here. I'm absolutely with you here. Now we're going to ask a question for Faduma. And the question is, I think it's kind of a question for everybody, but when you have a review, before deploying anything or being ready for the review, how long does it take? Is that a long process? Is that supposed to be kind of What is the process look like?
So PR reviews. PR reviews.
Yeah, the PR reviews.
Yeah. So my thought process is that nothing should be surprising in a PR review. Like if you had those discussions, you know what's expected, the following patterns, it shouldn't be like a massive surprise that this is how the solution to this task, because that's really, you're following what's existing. So PRs for me are quite routine. So I like to do them in the morning. I get my coffee, I sit down and I review PRs, and they should, I don't know, like maybe 10 minutes. I don't know. I shouldn't take too long. So I really like to use a VS Code. So I pull down the PR, make sure that it actually is working. It does what it's supposed to do. I also look at the ticket that's attached to see that it's supposed to doing what it's supposed to be doing. If there's any tests, all the things that you went through today, well, those are the things that you're going to be checking for in a PR to make sure that, we are getting good code. Yeah.
Same. So same thing. It should not be surprising. So what I did do as a senior developer, we do a thrice a week technical discussions where whole team come together, talk about their story which they have picked, what approach they are taking, and what other developers feels about it. If we feel that it should be another way or some other thing, we express so that there is no surprise in the PR. Also, we do maintain a conference page for the coding patterns, that what we as a organization, what we are following, so that making sure every developer is doing this. And I believe in raising work in progress PR rather than a big PR. That helps the reviewers a lot and make the things go fast. Same thing in the morning, first thing to do is start doing the code reviews. Sit on your system, check open PRs, start making sure that they are running, what the UX team is expecting, what kind of requirements we were having, they are matching. I also do one thing which is actually passed to me by one of my seniors, that whenever you are reviewing any line of code, think if you would have done that, how you would have done that. And just compare the both approaches and then think, is it good, performance is meeting, impacting, what is happening, how you can improve it, scaling, how you can, if tomorrow a scalable, something we need to add in this particular code, is it scalable approach or not? So these 2-3 things I also try to think about when I'm reviewing. If you are having short work in progress PRs coming your way, it should not be will take much time to review.
Following question here about the consistency and the reusability. Did it ever happen to you when you have somebody push the code and the code is not consistent? So you cannot reuse it, the state is not really thought through. What would you do? How would you communicate to the developer that it's needed to be changed, or what is the way? Have you ever seen that in your career?
Yes, it's very common that whenever you are joining a new company or working with someone, definitely way of workings are different. Not just as a senior person, but I think as a fellow person, you should be polite by saying that, we could work. And I always prefer to use word we over you or I, because at the end of the code, it is of company, it's of an organization. So we all are working together on that. So I always mention whenever I do code review, I put that suggestion. We should think about the consistency and why we are doing it. I work from home. We never talk. So it's only text. And sadly, text do and it doesn't, express the emotion. It depends upon the other person, how that person is reading. So I prefer to prefix my feedback when I'm texting, that it's a suggestion and why I'm doing this. So these 2 things help me to provide the feedback. And the other thing is I also try to help and understand if the developer is new, to provide some links and get on a call. I don't want to lower their morale, so I get on the call with them and I try to explain that why we are doing it, what is the advantage you will get out of this, and what the advantage the code will get out of this. So yeah, I'm little bit, I think I'm a soft person.
Actually, on that point, and I will ask this question to everybody, because I think pull request reviews and having communicating in the team is always very important. But have you seen the developers when they disagree with your opinion and what would you do about like communicating back about your opinions? Do you take approach that you need to push the developer to do something? Do you take approach that you're communicating, then they bring in the team? What is the approaches you would?
It happens, yeah, it happens all the time. And it's actually a very learning experience when you get challenged by some other developer that your approach is not right, or this is not right, this is right. As a developer, I also try to learn that from where they are coming. And I try to compare that where my approach is, it's not correct, and where their approach is correct, and what are the differences are there, and try to deal maturely, discuss about this, discuss about the requirement. As I told you, scalability, performance, accessibility, what are the requirements we have. These all things we try to discuss. At the end of the day, the code is not a personal thing. What we are trying to do is we are shipping the code for a organization. So I try to discuss, and at the end of the day, the which one is winning approach, we will go through that. Yes, there are tough people who don't take your view, who are like, no, this is right, this is right. So I prefer to tell them that, let's do a POC. That would be the best thing to do. You do your POC and then try to add these many requirements, and then we will see that how it is going. And because that developer is already coming with that mentality that I'm correct, eventually they try to feel that where their approach is failing. So yeah, this is how I try to do it.
Want to add anything on your experience?
Yeah, I think depersonalizing it, I think is really important, because it's not about right or wrong. It's not about you failed and etc. PR reviews, like you said, is about the team and the project and what you're producing there. It's not your personal like project. So it's and I come through that with that mindset as well when I'm reviewing it. I might be wrong, like maybe I'm wrong. So I rather have a discussion. I don't really like having major back and forths on a PR or even Slack. If it's like more than two, let's have a conversation. Let's go on, Slack, Huddle, or, Zoom, and actually have a conversation as to why, your perspective on what's going on. And yeah, and I think what I want to bring back to what I said about having like team cohesion and team understanding. I think if you have that already, where people know what the patterns are, what we value, and what we want to achieve, then those kind of harsh kind of discussions where someone does not want to move doesn't really happen. Yeah, that's really my thought.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. I couldn't really have said it better myself. The one thing is have external documentation of some of your standards so that you can always call back to it.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point. On this note, what is the biggest challenge you faced as a woman in tech? Because we are ReactJS girls. We are not talking only about the React. We are talking about the experience as a woman being in tech.
I would say my experience has been pretty charmed. I was saying earlier how for the last 4 or 5 years I've been working on 50% female teams. I then got called out of it because my old colleague is here, and she said, "Oh, that was just because we followed all the other girls around." I was like, "I don't think that's true." So I've honestly been so lucky with mentoring. I've never had a problem with my gender. And yeah, I really have nothing to say on this one.
That is great. That's amazing.
Me on one hand, I think it's been challenging, definitely, and I have been the only woman, also only Black person in a team majority of the time in my career. I had a nice experience at Conde. Conde, shout out to you. My team was also 50% women, but that is quite a rarity for me in the industry. It's definitely been challenges. I feel like when I first started, I was very meek. I am quite introverted, but now I feel like I can, push and speak for myself and feel confident with my experience, also my knowledge. But that came with time. So yeah.
So I'm not sure those were challenges, but I always, other people used to highlight that I am a female, I'm in tech. And I was like, how does it make any difference? Because I'm at the end of the day, what we say is we are techie. So when in India, when I was running my meetup, no one knew about meetup at that time. And I was the female person who was running the tech meetup. So a lot of incidents used to happen. For many years, I was the only female in room full of males. And once there was a guy came and he said, he just entered and I was preparing for meetup and he was like, who is Neha? So I said, yeah, I'm Neha. Are you doing the meetup? I was like, yes. And he was like, oh, I just come to see how a female can do a tech meetup. And I was like, okay, okay, fine. And then I used to discuss with my family, my father, who actually pushed me to the technical world. He always used to tell me that do not let your gender come between your career or anything. It has nothing to do that. And I always work like this. And there was once I got a promotion and I become a manager. There was a person in my team and he said no to work with me because indirectly he don't want to report to a female manager. And I went, and my manager at that time, he was mentioning me that I think this is a problem. And I laughed and I said, you know what? I'm a female and I'm not in the mood to change it. So you figure it out what you want to do with him. So yeah, there were challenges, but I always found a way to handle it. And what I found after so many years, it's more than 10 years I'm working in tech. The thing is, unless and until more females will not come forward and, sit like this, attend like this, there will always be the question like this. So it's better to have a representation matters. So please, all the females, if they are online, hearing on YouTube or wherever, please be more visible. This is what I feel.
Following up question then, on this note, what would you recommend for the women or people which are starting just their career in tech? What would you suggest them to look at? Because there are so many multiple options to learn React or HTML or CSS or JavaScript or Python, and then we can continue nonstop. Which websites or which boot camps or like anything, pair programming with somebody, call your friend and, start pair programming with it. What would you suggest to start the career in tech?
You start, then
Okay.
I will go.
For people that are like completely brand new, who have never done any coding at all, who just want to know what's going on, I always say do something free like Code Academy, just for you, so you can have a taste of what it's like to like code, and from there you can decide whether you want to become a developer. There's loads of different routes to technology. There's DevOps, front end, back end. There's a huge amounts of things to do. But yeah, start off with Code Academy. See if you like it, if it jives with you. If it does, then there's loads of other programs for minorities. There's Code Frescos and others that do tasters and free courses and eventually boot camps. You can do a master's as well. There's so many options now. So I think it's an amazing time to be like starting as a developer. So yeah. Also, I feel like just go somewhere for an event just so that you can meet other people, so you can get motivated. Because starting off with people is really nice, where you can talk about your frustrations and the challenges you're having, and motivate you into joining the industry. And also it's cathartic to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing, are you struggling too? And hopefully could end up like us here. Yay.
So I'm one of the people that joined a consultancy with not a specific dev role, and from that I was able to eke out a dev role. A lot of big companies have like return to work schemes or these kind of like new joiner schemes that might give you the flexibility to be able to make it work for you. I know at the moment that GIFGAF are currently employing completely junior, never done coding before, and putting them through an intensive year-long training opportunity. So those things do exist. And as I'm someone that, again, I don't like coding at home, I like doing it as my job. Recommend doing that because you get paid while you're still making your way towards what you want to do. I've seen boot camps work a lot. I mean, we have someone here today where bootcamp really worked. But again, Code Academy was also a great shout. That's where I started learning to code as well.
Yeah, basically, don't be afraid to start coding and everything. If something goes wrong, keep going, keep pushing. Well, that was all of my questions for now. Thank you very much, our amazing speakers. Let's just applaud them for all the amazing talks.